Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Have you heard? Season 2 of the Pioneer Made to Grow podcast with host Andrew Campbell is back. New topics, trusted industry voices, more expert ag advice. Find it wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today we have a great returning guest. We have David Specht. How are you, David?
I'm doing great, Tracy. Thanks for having me back.
I am so happy to have you back. For you guys in the audience, if you missed last episode with David, check that out. But I'll give you a little bit of a bio and get Dave to, I'm going to go with Dave, okay? Instead of David.
Dave's good. We're friends now. Yeah, we've been 2 episodes now, so we're good.
Excellent. So I'm on Dave basis. We're going to get Dave to share a little bit more about who he is, what he does. And today we're talking about his book titled The Farm Whisperer. So very quickly, Dave is director of the Global Family Institute at the Drucker School of Management. I love the title of the book. It is so intriguing. And as I mentioned to you, anytime I have a guest on the show that's an author, I always love to do a segment specifically on the book. So I'm excited to dive in. Before we do that, why don't you share a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and then we'll roll into your book.
Sure. So I am a dad. I have 6 kids. And so family is really important to me. And ultimately with the families that I work with that have farms and businesses, my main purpose is preserving those family relationships and, perpetuating those farms and businesses. So family is really at the center of my entire life, including my professional and personal life. I really got deep into working with generational farms when I was at the University of Nebraska. And this book actually came out in 2015. Lots of timeless principles, though, that are still relevant today. So,
yeah. Perfect. Okay, so why don't we dive into the book, The Farm Whisperer? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Sure. So, Tracy, I'll go back to kind of why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
I was working with farmers and ranchers and business owners, and I was feeling great about what the work I was doing, but it was one family at a time. It was kind of slow. It takes a long time to get a family to, process and to make decisions and then ultimately implement and execute the plans. And so, my bandwidth for working with farmers and ranchers was limited. And I wanted to see if I could have a bigger impact. And so I figured, what if I take the principles that I'm working with these families and put them in a book so that families that either don't hire me or don't hire a consultant at all, maybe the book and the materials can move them a little farther down the road to prepare them for the conversations that they need to have with their CPA and their attorney, to put a plan in place that not only, saves taxes and, minimizes the transfer challenges, but also, helps them from a family perspective to communicate and create expectations for the rising generation and really a kind of a roadmap. So that was the purpose for which I wrote the book, was just to try to help more families without necessarily touching them individually.
Love it. You know what? Normally that's why people write a book, right? They say, hey, I have this body of work. I need to get it out there. I only have so many hours in the day. Let's do a book. And then they go from there, right? And, another reason why I like to feature guests in their books is honestly, as a business person, I have built this media company from scratch to where it is today. And without books, I will firmly 500% say I will not have been able to build this company. Books have changed my life. Books have changed my business. So that's actually my second big why on why I do book, let's call it book reports, bringing on guests to talk about their great work, because there's so much wisdom in books, Dave, as you know, and they're $20. Honestly, the ideas in books can make you millions, save you tons of money, and it's $20. So I'm so excited to get you to chat in. And I think that's a great point. Why don't we roll into the book? So if somebody was to pick up this book, can you walk us through, not chapter by chapter, but some of the core ideas and what they can expect to get from reading the book?
Yeah. A good place to start, Tracy, is actually what the book is not. And I think it's important to know what it is not. It's not prescriptive. Okay. So someone that's going to pick up the book, it's not Dave saying, if you do X, Y, and Z, your family will be happy and your farm will continue. It's too simplistic. Like if you think about how complex families are, and then you think about how challenging a business is and a farm is with different markets and different timing, and it's unique and individual. And so when you think about this book, really the structure of the book is there's stories, there's principles, and then with each chapter, there's a question, something that will require the reader to reflect. And then there's even place in the book for the reader to write down what they thought, what they felt. And with each chapter, again, I'm encouraging generational conversations, because Tracy, that's where most farmers and ranchers fall short, is we don't do a good job of creating expectations, whether that's expectations within our own relationships, with our spouse, with how long are we going to work, how long, what will our lifestyle look like when we slow down and pass the farm to the rising generation, or the expectations for the rising generation of, is this going to be gifted to them, or are they going to buy it? If they're going to buy it, are they going to buy it at market value, or are they going to get a discount? So all of these things are, if unspoken, they represent risks to the family relationships. And so again, with each chapter, there's stories, there's principles, and then there's a question that will really cause them to reflect. And then ultimately we want to push them to share how they're feeling, and also ask those similar questions to other family members, so that they can have a shared perspective. They may not have the same opinion, but as long as they can have a conversation about those really important issues, then I feel like we've done our job. So I can give you a couple of examples. I like to use kind of fun stories. There's some pictures in here. I've been able to kind of toe the line of professional and personal. There's some pictures in here of my kids. One of the stories I like to tell is I feel like shared ownership, Tracy, is one of the toughest things in the world. And with farms, oftentimes we're putting our kids, or we're in shared ownership with our cousins, or whatever it may be. And so I use a picture of my third son, and he's pulling this wagon, and his older siblings are just sitting in there, and they're much larger than him, and he's clearly frustrated. And so anyways, I try to have fun with some of these stories, but the truth is that, these are tough issues. So I kind of toe the line between having fun with some of these issues and making it visual, and then encouraging people to, really ask the tough questions of themselves and then of their family.
Love it. And I love that you go into expectation. And I think we might have even chatted about this in our last episode. This is ringing a bell, but in life, in relationships, in business partnerships, I think as humans, and I know I'll speak for myself, we all have these expectations, firm expectations on how everything should go in life, right? Mm-hmm. But how often, even if we are smart, intelligent, thoughtful individuals, we sometimes still keep that in our head, right? And I think of how often, like, friends and family that farm, and I look at the different generations, and if there's no clear communication, dad has his expectations, right? He probably can't verbalize it or won't, just the same as the younger generation might not, but everybody knows what they want and how they want to get it. But how often do we forget to actually communicate that?
Well, if you think about it, Tracy, I mean, our brains are wired to close those gaps. So we really can't deal with that uncertainty. And so what our brain does is it just fills in the gaps. So if we don't know, then we put in our own expectation. And that's what's really challenging, with generational succession, whether it's, with buying ownership or being gifted ownership or progressing in leadership or responsibilities. I was speaking at Brigham Young University yesterday, and there were some seniors that were getting ready to go back to their family businesses. And, I asked them about their job descriptions, and most of them did not have a job description that they were coming back to. And it was like, if you were going to a non-family business, if you were going to just work in corporate America, would you consider accepting a job that you didn't have a job description for? Would you consider joining that business without knowing exactly how you were going to be paid? I mean, Tracy, these are things that seem crazy, like outside of the world of family business or the family farm, but these are things that happen every single day in agriculture.
I know. And when I started this show, I'm like, okay, we're going to take mainstream business to farming and then take all these principles and get farmers to implement them. And I agree with that. And I love it because it is ridiculous that we don't have a lot of these conversations and clarity. And then I kind of look to our farm and I go, somewhere in there, we like the freedom, the being our own boss, the fact that you don't have to have these job descriptions. We do like that because there's a little more freedom and leeway. But I think going from one extreme, corporate, to let's just wing it. We'll show up and we won't talk about anything. I think those are the two polar opposite and not dangerous, but two polar opposite ends of the scale. I think the magic's in the middle. When you start to bring in some of the, I guess, maybe casualness of the farm, you don't have the weight of corporate, but you bring
it's just informal. Right? It's not bad. It's just informalities that because we're family, we just, talk things through when things come up. And, do we really need a job description? Maybe not. But like when you think about, I'm thinking about these kids that are joining the family business, and some of them are married. And it's one thing if you're the son or the daughter of the owner and you just trust that things will be worked out, and you trust, well, I'm going back to work with mom or dad. But think about the spouse that's coming back with you, and they want a sense for what are we signing up for, and how will we provide for the family. And so, as you add a spouse into that equation, it becomes more important to add a little bit of formality so that there can be some expectations.
I agree. Kind of where I was saying in that middle too is it is uncomfortable if you don't know what's happening. Great, it's informal, but wait a minute, how much am I getting paid if there's a wage? Where are we progressing? I would like to buy this farm. How's that happening? If you don't have those conversations, I honestly believe that is the root of evil, right? And if you don't have those conversations, there's unmet expectation, and then people are unhappy, families fall apart. So really at the end of the day, for me, this show is marrying corporate with the farm and coming into that magic middle. And I love like the work that you do and the ideas and principles that you bring. So I'm happy to share your book on the show.
Thank you.
So
can I share another story?
Yes,
bring another story for you?
Yes, please. Okay.
So I oftentimes am speaking, and a number of years ago, I was speaking at an ag conference and came up with this concept. In the U.S., the FFA is a pretty big thing, Future Farmers of America. And so I changed that to Forever Farmhands of America, because I was trying to let them know that, look, unless you put plans in place, you're really not preparing future owners you're teaching them how to run the farm. But ultimately, if you're not teaching them how to be owners and not creating a path for them to rise in leadership and responsibility, and also know what it feels like to be an owner, start to take some of that risk with you, you really are raising forever farm hands. And so anyways, there's some things in the book that kind of poke the bear a little bit. Yeah. But you have to challenge people a little bit, and it's in a loving and playful way. But I don't want the rising generation to be forever farm hands. I want them to be owners. I want them to have ownership mentality as early as possible. And I want the senior generation to maximize what they can get from the rising generation by truly engaging them and creating a vision for what can be. So anyways, we have some fun with some of those concepts.
I like that. That actually kind of stings a little bit. And I'm sure that's the intent, right? Forever
That's the
farm.
purpose. Yeah, that's the intent.
Yeah. Ouch. Yeah, that would, sometimes you need those in your face, wake you up kind of analogies, right? For people to actually get it. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. I don't have a copy of your book in front, and I didn't pull up the outline. Do you have it with you?
I do. There it is.
Nice. So can you do something for me? Can you open it to the index? I'm just curious. And can you kind of jump through some of your chapters with the names? I'm just curious.
Sure. Yeah, we have I'm Not a Sheep, The Challenges of Fitting In. That's a story about one of my sons. We were doing the nativity scene at grandma's house, and one of his cousins, he was little, had dressed him up and had a bonnet on. And they were trying to make a sheep out of him, for the nativity scene. And I told him, I said, what a cute little sheep. And he said, I'm not a sheep, I'm a superhero. Ooh. And so we take that fun little concept and say, look, the rising generation, you need to figure out who they see themselves as, and figure out a path for them. So that's one of them.
I love it.
We talked about enticed or herded. That's for our cattle people, farm continuity planning.
Okay.
We then go to the quiet killer of the generational farm, where we talk about some of the unique risks, and specifically the risks with long-term care or disability, and some of the challenges that farms have navigating those issues. We talk about the unintended consequences of shared ownership, mentioned that a little bit earlier. There's a chapter on the compensation conundrum, because with farms, it isn't always as clear as corporate America, where it's, here's your W-2 income and here's your benefits. In farming, we like to make it more complex than that. We have farm-owned housing, and that's involved, and we have the pickup, and we have fuel, and we have all these fringe benefits. So anyways, compensation is something that I think farmers need to spend more time on. And again, if it can just get clarified, and even written down, like what is the compensation and how does it work? I just think we can keep from having a lot of the strains that exist in agriculture.
Okay.
We talk about the farm report card, 3 C's, 2 D's, and an F. Ooh. And then another chapter is your new lens. So one of those chapters talks about the 3 systems that are kind of coming together with a farm, where you have the family system, which is a unit of unconditional love, and then you have the farm, which is market-based, and there's different kinds of risks involved, and then you have ownership. And so we talk about that as kind of a Venn diagram, and it's the new lens through which farmers should look at how do you manage the future of the enterprise and take into account the very different needs of those different subgroups. So that's kind of a quick rundown of some of the chapters.
Ooh, I love it. I feel like I'm at a bookstore right now. If you can't tell, I'm a geek. I love books. I go to the bookstore. What's the first thing I do? Well, obviously you look at the spine or the cover, you flip to the back, you kind of glance, and then you go to the table of contents, right? And you go, okay, do any of those catch my attention? Yep, buying the book. So I'm glad that you shared those. So I'm curious, you've shared a few neat stories and powerful concepts. Do you have a favorite part or story from the book that you haven't already mentioned? Do you have something that it's your favorite part of the book is the author, or you like it all?
Well, I love the back of the book where I kind of have fun with them. Again, I talk about the five reasons farm transition planning is optional. And number one is if you don't mind the default plan that the government has already created for you, don't bother. And so I offer up, I like having fun along the way. These are tough things. Most people don't like to talk about transition planning because it usually involves, death or a disability or, just things no one wants to discuss. And so, along the way, just having fun. I really enjoyed, the incorporating some of the visual things into the book. And so I think people will like those pictures. You'll get to know my little kids along the journey of the book too. So those are a couple of things I enjoy.
Love it. Okay, so we chat about favorite part of the book. I'm going to ask you about your mission. Every writer has a mission in writing their book, their goal, what they want farmers to take away. Before I get you to answer that, is there anything else that you want to share with the audience about the book? Or I'll get you to answer my last closing question. Your mission.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the book is really for someone that wants to be challenged and wants to preserve their families and perpetuate their farms and is ready to kind of do some of the hard soul searching work of figuring out how to talk about some of these things. I think your audience of farm women, I think will particularly enjoy the book because it sits squarely at the intersection of the family and the farm. And I think, that's my favorite audience to speak to because they truly understand the implications on their children if these plans don't get put in place and if there's not clarity. And as I think about my wife and our 6 kids, I mean, she's so influential and so invested in those kids that, it's this type of work that just resonates with her and I think with her peers too. So.
Love it. Okay, so
as far as mission goes,
yeah.
As far as mission goes, the mission of the book and my personal mission, and you've heard me say it now multiple times, is the preservation of the family unit and the perpetuation of the farm. And Tracy, it's really in that order. Farms can be rebuilt. Families are more difficult. And so ultimately, I don't know what it is that's going to kind of trip the trigger of the farm family that's listening to this. But if it's being worried about somehow damaging your family relationship by not having a plan, then that's enough. If they're really passionate about seeing the land stay in the family from one generation to the next, maybe that's the thing that trips the trigger. But ultimately, if we can preserve some family units and perpetuate these farms and give them an opportunity to succeed and to succeed with harmony, along the way too. I love everything about what farmers represent. They represent the opportunity to teach young kids to work at an early age, which is more and more difficult every day, it seems. I mean, you get an opportunity to teach kids what it means to ownership, what it means to own something. They understand about life and death, growing up on a farm. They see it, they experience it. So there's so many things I love about agriculture. So the book is really meant to just do my small part to try to increase harmony in these farm families and to give them a great opportunity to perpetuate their farms from one generation to the next.
That is powerful. Thank you. So if somebody is listening to this episode or watching it, how can they get a copy of your book or connect with you, learn more about what you do?
Yeah, the best way is just Amazon.com. The book is called The Farm Whisperer. If you Google my name, it'll probably be the top 5 things that come up. So Dave Specht, either one of those will take you pretty quickly to the book.
Perfect. And as always, we will put links and connections to Dave and an icon to drive people to Amazon where they can buy the book as well. So that will all be in the show notes if you guys want to check
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for the work you do, Dave. It's wonderful. It's needed. And I really hope that you guys grab a copy of Dave's book, read it, and implement the principles on your farm. We know now there's so many assets, big dollars that need a transition from one generation to the next. This is the tipping point where we need work and books like yours more than ever. So I would grab a copy of that book, read it, implement it on your farm. So thank you, Dave. I
Thanks
really
for having
appreciate
me, Tracy.
You're welcome. And
Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you, Dave. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. If you loved this episode as much as I did, like it, share it, get it out there so other farmers can hear about Dave and the great work that he's doing. Thanks, guys. See you on next week's episode. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.